Hey folks, this is Kelani. We've all had a bit of time to play with the Netherlight Crucible, and a lot of people will be progressing into the second tier of unlocks. I'm sure a few crazy people out there are unlocking the third row too, but they're the special few who really like artifact power. Thankfully, the third row is fairly easy to understand, so we can still talk about it. So let's have a look at the Netherlight Crucible and see what we think so far. Let's start with the good, because it's always nice to start with a smile. The Crucible does its job really well. It increases our overall power through a variety of methods, and is pretty interesting when you first look at it. The first row gives us a straight 15 item level upgrade to our artifact, which is huge for some classes and then kind of mediocre for others, but it's still a decent power spike. It's also very easy to unlock that first row. You more or less just have to complete the Netherlight Crucible quest lines and unlock the Crucible itself. The whole system even unlocks across your entire account, so you don't have to run through all of the quests on any of your ults if you don't want to. The second row gives us a bit of choice, but the paths of shadow and light are actually random, which is a little annoying. You can have some really powerful effects here, or just some extra versatility whenever your concordance procs. The third row is an interesting implementation of what the dev team said they wanted to add into the game in one way or another. 2 traits on 1 relic. The Crucible gives you the potential to have your best trait and your second best trait on every relic you own. That's just probably going to be unlikely. So as a tool to increase our power, the Crucible works really well, but it has quite a few shortcomings which a lot of people have been quite vocal about. Overall, I'm a little frustrated with the whole thing. It seems to be another case of, hey, this could be really cool, we'll give you a whole bunch of options so it's not always the same thing over and over. Which is all fine and dandy in theory, but when it's all implemented and the numbers game begins, it's hard to be excited about choosing between random effects and abilities when either they're both terrible or one clearly outshines the other. It feels a little like the legendary system again, except everything is happening much faster. At the start of the expansion, almost any legendary was really exciting. It wasn't until people figured out the absolute best options that people started to consider any of the legendaries that dropped for them to be bad. When you throw that same kind of system into relics, it starts to feel kind of lame if you don't get a good roll of the dice. RNG has been very prevalent through the Legion expansion, so I guess why stop now? It just seems to be a bit weird for Blizzard to add in another random system which is tied to one of our most important pieces of gear. Both the second and third rows are random, with the small exception of your relic's current trait cannot appear in the third row. That prevents you from super stacking your best traits. The random factor is kind of interesting at first, but if you look up what your best talents are, and you get your worst talents, that's just a terrible feeling. So I guess either don't look anything up, don't run any sims and don't care about your character's potential power, or go try pick up some different relics and hope they roll some better Crucible talents. It's not an ideal situation either way you play it. To make things a little more annoying, you can't actually undo any of the selections in the Netherlight Crucible. So if you go into this blind and want to have fun with it, then look things up later and find out you're actually wrong, tough luck. You'll need to get another relic if you want to pick different talents, but when you get another relic there's no guarantee you'll have the same stuff. There's no reset mechanic, so you need to be careful when making your decisions. It would have been nice for the dev team to introduce something that let you reset your choices, at least if not for free, then for some minor amount of Veiled Argonite or some other Argus related resource. Play into the whole Shadow and Light storyline going on. If we chose a light talent, then we need to find a shadow resource to undo it and pick the other. You could introduce more gameplay mechanics into the whole system by allowing us to move between light and dark. It seems like a bit of a missed opportunity for something that I would have expected to be there in one form or another. Having something like talents permanent has never really felt great, and in an expansion which allows you to swap around almost anything, almost anywhere, it's a bit of a strange choice. I'm also a little annoyed about how everything unlocks. You know you've got a wonky system on your hands when you have to explain it several times on the forums, release an entire news post trying to explain it in detail, and then still have to go over it in a live Q&A. Tying the whole thing to artifact power was also a huge duck move. Going from, yeah, it's not that important, small increase in power, to huge DPS increase from the Crucible talents which are locked behind artifact power grinding, isn't a great feeling. I get that the artifact power system became a little redundant, and this is almost the only way to kick some life back into it, but it's going to spark off another AP farm craze. I still wouldn't recommend you farm any artifact power actively, at least not until another few rounds of artifact knowledge are under your belt. Thankfully you do get a whole bunch of artifact power from world quests, dungeons and raids without having to go out of your way to do anything weird or special, so that is a huge relief. If you don't go crazy and think you absolutely need to have your artifact at 75 to unlock the last Crucible row for your third relic, I guess tying it all to AP isn't all that bad, but there's always that nagging feeling saying you could have more if you farmed more AP, which is going to be gnawing at me until that last trait is unlocked. Healers also seem to get shafted a little with the Crucible. Half of the second tier deals with damage, especially the shadow traits. That means half the time a healer's choice is kind of made up for them. It also really sucks if the trait they want on the third row is in the corner that only the shadow path can unlock. Take a worse second tier, or take a worse third tier. It seems to be a lot harder to line everything up perfectly when it comes to healers, except maybe disc priests. They must be having the time of their lives right now. Now, this might not apply to everyone, but it's also way more annoying to deal with loot when it comes to relics. Suddenly the same relic could be kind of bad, or the absolute best thing you can equip, depending on what the Crucible decides to give you. That makes it frustrating as all hell when several people want the same relic for the same reason. Even if you decide to run things on personal loot or you're just running some pugs, you just can't afford to give away any relics that drop now, even if you already have something of equal item level or maybe even a higher item level, because you can't see what the Crucible will do to a relic until you actually go to the Crucible and plug the relic in. Some classes rely so heavily on their traits, and the second tier of bonuses in the Crucible are a huge amount of damage for some specs. That means that some lower item level relics can actually be an upgrade if the Crucible treats you right. It's bonkers. There's even rumours going around that if you sell or delete a relic and then go into the item restoration service, you can get the same relic back, but it can have different Crucible talents. I wouldn't recommend doing this for the pure sake of trying to cheat the Crucible system, as it might be viewed in poor taste by the dev team, but people will go to extremes to get their best option in any system you create a best option. I think it's a little silly when you have to run off to some other location to try and test some things out before you can equip a piece of gear. Which is really odd when you think about it. That was the main argument made when reforging was removed from the game. I wouldn't really compare them all too closely, but it's weird for a system to make its way back in, which seems to go against what the dev team said they wanted to happen. We want it to be easy to see if an item is an upgrade or not. Doesn't really seem to have been in the memo for this one. I do like that the Crucible offers way more interaction and complexity than reforging. Swapping haste for mastery because haste is bad and mastery is good is still a boring system, so I'm glad the Crucible is at least more interesting. I just wish we could get a system which has its rewards based on time and effort rather than random factors. I can see problems with both types of implementations, but I also play this game probably way more than I should, so that would probably bias my opinion. If you're someone who just wants to enjoy what they get and not look too deeply into things, the Crucible can offer you some fun choices and a good increase in power. If you're like me and you love to min-max everything about your character, get ready to farm up some relics. We're going to be here a while. But maybe that's the point. Maybe this is all some clever plan from Blizzard to keep us super busy chasing perfect relics so we don't notice if the content stops coming. Sneaky devils. But that's it for this video. If you have any questions or queries, please leave them in the comments section below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible, or hop on over to Discord. We have a server at discord.gg/Kelani, great place to come ask questions or just hang out. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always, I will see you next time. Are they gone? Okay, good. So for those of you who are left, I have a half apology, half rant I'd like to get off my chest. I'm sorry there hasn't been anything up for a few days. I've been battling with the pesky existence that is my computer. My main hard drive died more or less right after I got my last video out, so at least it didn't die before that. I ordered a new drive, but didn't actually have to wait for it to start the reinstallation, as I always use 3 drives anyways. Getting Windows to play nice wasn't that bad, but getting all of my Adobe products back was a nightmare. It took me 2 days and 4 Windows reinstallations before everything played along nicely, so here's hoping it stays that way and I don't have to do all of this again. But just wanted to give you guys a heads up as to why I didn't upload anything about those awesome new BlizzCon mounts and why things have been a little bit quiet recently. So thanks for staying to listen, and I'll catch you all later.